To set up integration with HPE AppPulse trace, you need to go to the Settings area. The settings are available in the Production Coverage tab. On the right hand side, there are steps. We will follow these steps to set up integration with HPE AppPulse trace. You need to monitor production deployment of your application and also dev test deployment of your application by AppPulse trace. If you haven't done so, please follow the steps and set up the monitoring. Once you set up AppPulse agents for your production and test deployment, you should get a picture like this. One application which represents your production environment and one which represents your test environment. Before going to ALM, let's review the details which we will need to set up the connection. You can find it here. To set up the integration, we need to choose the release of our application and define connection settings. Let's enter details as we saw in AppPulse trace application. We can validate whether our settings are correct, and when the connection is valid, we can choose application which represents production deployment and application in AppPulse tenant which represents test deployment. For the defined connection, monitoring data from AppPulse trace is received periodically. We can force the synchronization to retrieval by clicking this button. The connection will be established and latest data for the production and test deployment of the application are retrieved. Transactions should be linked to application modules so that we can review coverage per each application module and not only for the whole application. By selecting a transaction, we can easily map it to an application module. Once we mapped transactions to application modules, we can go to the dashboard and add the widgets which will inform us about coverage. We can add a widget which will inform us about coverage of the whole application. After adding it to the dashboard, we need to configure it. We have to choose a release for which integration with AppPulse trace has been configured, and we need to choose the right data range for which we have some data. Then the widget shows us coverage of our application. In this case, it's 85%. It means 85% of transactions which are used by real users in our production deployment are covered by our test. 15% of the functionality used by production users is not covered at all. Next, we can add a widget which will inform us about coverage per each application module. Not only that we can discover the coverage gap, but we can see in which areas of our application we have the gap. We have to choose the release and we have to choose the data range. Now we can see in which areas we have the gap. By clicking the area, we can see the list of transactions which are not covered.